What's up, my fellow dorks? Here is the Turtle Dork back with a new movie review. So this review I have for you is for Ghost in the Shell. Yes, Ghost in the Shell. I'm a little bit late, but still wanted to get this one to you. So yeah, Ghost in the Shell stars Scarlett Johansson as Major, and this is directed by Rupert Sanders, who also directed Snow White and the Huntsman. Now, what I can say about Rupert Sanders is that he is a very visual filmmaker. He has a background in visual effects, and you could definitely see his talent of visual effects in Snow White and the Huntsman, and he brings that over here into Ghost in the Shell. Now, unfortunately, I think the same thing follows over with him as well, is the fact that Snow White and the Huntsman is not a very good movie. It is extremely boring. That kind of runs similar with this movie as well. Visually, this movie is absolutely stunning. The world building that's done, the technology that we see within this world, and just the visceral look of how everything is very rich, it's very complex, and it's very futuristic, and it really brings a different layer to a movie like this, a movie that needs this, coming from the anime series that it originated from. And you can definitely tell that Rupert Sanders is a fan of the Ghost in the Shell property, because this film really does feel like it's pulling from all the different iterations of Ghost in the Shell. And you can say, in one sense, that can be a detriment to this film, because on one hand, it almost feels like this is a fan film. But you could tell that it's coming from somebody who has extreme passion and love for this property. Now, with all the criticisms that Scarlett Johansson was getting as far as playing the character of Major, I thought her portrayal and her performance of the character was pretty decent. It was pretty on point for what was for what she was asked to do in this film. And when you get a little bit of context as far as who Major is and a little bit of her backstory, you get a better understanding of maybe why she was cast in this role. I know there's a lot of complaints about the whitewashing of this character, but I mean, if I'm looking at this just as the narrative of the film within the context of this story, you know, I have to say that her casting worked. It worked for this film. The film does a great job of bringing in a lot of those themes from the manga and the anime, dealing with the idea of cybernetics and biomechanical engineering and how that is integrated with the human body. In the beginning, they mention of a guy who drank so much that he ruined his liver, so they replaced his liver with a biomechanical liver. So you would see people that lived in this world that would have like cybernetic organisms or other appendages to kind of make themselves whole. And the whole idea of Ghost in the Shell, you know, putting the consciousness of or the brain of somebody into like a cyborg, cybernetic body. It's really intriguing, and to think about it as we kind of move along in our society, even though it's science fiction, it doesn't really seem that far-fetched. One thing I did notice about the film, though, it feels very small in scope. You know, even though it has beautiful landscapes and beautiful cityscapes, and the set decoration and the cinematography, the costume design, everything is immaculate. It's absolutely gorgeous, but the world doesn't feel lived in. And I don't know if there was restraints on the budget, because the budget was pretty massive. I thought it was at least 100 mil, maybe even more. So to to have the film and not really fill the world in with other people, especially when you're outside in the city on the streets. We see a lot more of that when we're in more enclosed areas, like the scenes in the club and stuff like that. But outside of that, I mean, the world that they created, it doesn't feel lived in. It almost feels like a backlot. And I think that kind of hurts the film as well, especially when you have such a lavish world to kind of show on screen. You want to fill it with like a lot of these other different characters and background players and just people on the streets, and it just doesn't, you don't feel that in this movie. Ultimately for me, I mean, and being so far removed from the film, this movie is pretty forgettable. It's not a great film. It's not necessarily a bad film. Comparing this to Rupert Sanders' other film, I definitely would recommend this one over Snow White and the Huntsman, but it suffers from the same pitfalls as that movie as well. So with a score, honestly, I hate to do this because I really wanted to like this movie. I have to give it, I'm gonna say a 65 out of 100. You know, it's decent, but it's not a movie that is going to stay with me, and it's not a movie that I'm going to be eager to rewatch. So yeah, those are my thoughts for Ghost in the Shell. Go ahead and let me know what you thought of the film in the comments below. Go ahead and rate, like, subscribe, and share, and go ahead and check out my other dorks at MouthDork, at TheDiscoDork, and at Sidewalk Siren. And as for me, I am the Turtle Dork, and with that, I'm out.